25 years of dedication to anything is a signature event. So I just want to thank all of you for coming and to celebrate with us. I will also mention that under my leadership as president of the Hillcrest Civic Association, we were able to do a number of things. The first thing we had to do was to get a group of people together because at that time, the association did not have an adopted set of bylaws. That took a lot of work and a lot of time, but we got that done with Belva Simmons and other people, the late Belva. So we just want to recognize that. I'm not one who stands on protocol, but I think that Hillcrest Civic Association is the best recognized and the best civic association in the city, bar none. In these talking points, I just want to deviate from that because it mentions that the Hillcrest drafted Anthony Williams. Well, what happened was a number of us who were members of the Hillcrest Community Civic Association outside of the organization worked to draft him. So I just want to make that statement for the record because that is what happened. Of course, it didn't hurt to have the nomenclature of the Hillcrest behind us, but it was a citywide effort. So I just want to make that, that correction.
Good morning. I'm Julie Rones, and I'm proud to be chairing this effort, and thank you all for coming. Walter L. Peacock III, our violinist, who goes by Haru, will play violin musical selections. He is a second-generation Penn Branch resident and second-year Howard University engineering student. Haru trained in the Suzuki method, which seeks to teach students to learn music naturally, like language. And it seeks to develop noble hearts, as opposed to musical prodigies. Haru has played solo concerts and at weddings and for special occasion venues. I think at this time I will call him up and have him play a few selections. So he will serenade us, and will you give a warm welcome to Haru Peacock? Thank you. what I neglected to mention was that Haru is my nephew. And I'm tremendously proud of him. Haru is also an athlete. He runs track. And I want to just give him a gift from us. So I'm going to give him a book by John Carlos, who was a track Olympian. So thank you so much, Haru. We're very proud of you.
By day, Mr. Byers is a marketing manager for Arlington Economic Development after having served as marketing director for Arlington Cultural Affairs since 1996. A freelance marketing consultant, he also lectures widely on Latin jazz, producing and hosting the ongoing Metro Mambo series for the Smithsonian Institution since 2010. For his 18 years as a Latin jazz broadcaster, Mr. Byers was recognized with a 2013 Artist Fellowship Program Award from the DC Commission on the Arts and Humanities. Without further ado, Mr. Byers.
Stay right here, because actually, how appropriate to have Marvin introduce me today, as Marvin introduced me to Hillcrest, 20 years ago, and it's talk about a gift that keeps on giving, this incredible community, this incredible neighborhood. Thank you for that introduction. Just about, all right. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you today? Is there anyone here? How are you today? There we go. That's what I'm talking about. This is a wonderful day celebrating 25 years of commitment, 25 years of looking forward, 25 years of connectivity to each other, to the city. Give yourselves a round of applause. It's been a pleasure for me to delve into the history of this community. I'm a history nut. I started collecting records when I was 8 years old because the covers look nice, you know? And the clothes didn't look like the people walking down the street now. They look different, you know, with all sorts of suits and ties and different things that people weren't wearing in the 70s. Now the 70s is history. Oh my goodness, how did that happen? But history looks different depending on the vantage point you're looking at it from. That's one of the things that I've discovered looking at Latin music history. As a matter of fact, a good friend of mine, Eduardo Diaz, the director of the Smithsonian Latino Center, actually really helped me identify a core difference as far as how to look at history and how my particular vision of history is. He was like, you know, when I listen to your program and when I listen to you speak, you talk about songs that many people say to me, oh my God, that's important because that's the song that I used to turn the speakers out towards the street and watch everybody dancing on the street and watch everybody moving. And that's great. However, when I look at it, I'm looking at, wait a second, Tanga by Machito. That's the tune that began the Latin jazz and the Latin and jazz marriage in 1942. That's the tune that begat the international mambo craze of the 1950s, that begat salsa. That's the tune that launched the Palladium and launched one of the first integrated nightclubs in New York City. And so it doesn't mean that one is more important than the other. Turning that speaker out to the street is important, and retaining that history is important. But it's also important to look at those broader impacts. And when I had the opportunity to research the history of Hillcrest, it was really to also fill in some gaps in some things that I had when I looked at the history, when I moved into the neighborhood. One of the things that I think is distinctive about Washington, D.C., we have a very strong, cohesive neighborhood system because of how we develop, because we don't have home rule, because we're very dependent on each other in our neighborhoods to move our agendas forward. But by that same token, I would look and I would think, okay, well, Randall Highlands is right there. The street runs right through. Penn Branch is right across Pennsylvania Avenue, and Branch Avenue runs right through it. So how could these neighborhoods not be connected? And what was so fascinating to learn is how deeply they are connected. When you look at some of the books that had been written previously, there's a wonderful book called The Anacostia Story by Louise Hutchins. That book is written from the standpoint of history of what was important at that particular moment in time in 1974. And what people were interested in was the war, the Civil War. The book only goes up till 1930. And about the largest mention that it makes of the areas of Hillcrest and Randall Highlands are Colonel Arthur Randall and how he related to the development of Congress Heights. And it makes slight mention that he did something else in East Washington afterwards. And then it says, and a lot of residential development happened in the 1930s on the hillsides. And that's really about it. It also mentions the Overlook Inn in the liner notes, but it doesn't actually mention the name of the inn on the page. It just says, oh, and the inn up on the hill. And I kept wondering, what was this inn up on the hill? And in looking for something else for the research for the book, I stumbled upon the key. And the key was the hotel, the Overlook Inn, wasn't located in Hillcrest because it wasn't called Hillcrest at that time. It was called East Washington Heights, and that's where that journey for me began as far as delving into the history. One of the myths that has been perpetuated about far southeast Washington in general is that there was never any interest in upscale development, in large-scale development in far southeast. Oh, and in the 19th century, no one was looking at far southeast Washington. Nothing, it turns out, could be further from the truth. As it turns out, some of the wealthiest and best business thinkers in the nation were looking at far southeast. We know that initially everyone expected Washington to develop towards the east. The Capitol faces towards the east. The Statue of Freedom on the top of it faces towards the east. But what happened was silt from the development of the city filled in the Anacostia River that was navigable for many, many years, just as the Potomac River was navigable around Georgetown. And all of a sudden, that economic viability used to be able to go up by tall ship all the way to Bladensburg. But suddenly in the mid-19th century, you could no longer do that. And so that was a major determining factor. Another major determining factor, one that persists today, is the perception that Hillcrest, that Southeast, that Ward 7 is far away. How many of you have heard your friends say, oh, well, it's wonderful and it's beautiful, but it's so far from everything? Well, some of those perceptions are rooted in 19th century occurrences. The bridge across the Pennsylvania Avenue, the crossing, was burned in 1812 to protect the city proper. It was set on fire. A new bridge was built, but in 1842, that bridge caught fire from sparks from a riverboat. And there wasn't a bridge across the Anacostia River at Pennsylvania Avenue for 42 years, almost my entire lifetime. I used to be able to say my entire lifetime. Can't quite say that anymore. Almost my entire lifetime, there was no way to get to the heart of Ward 7. You had to go up to Benning Road or down to the 11th Street Bridge. When they finally built a new bridge in 1886, 88, it was 24 feet wide. So there was notorious backups. You know, if you had a full-size carriage or a load of equipment or something, it could back things up. God forbid, a wheel broke or something like that. So it caused congestion. So again, a lot of this has been perpetuated for centuries, but they're issues that haven't necessarily existed for centuries. However, that bridge kind of plays into the lore of the Overlook Inn. About 1894, the Havermeyer estate, this was the owners of Domino Sugar, which once owned over, or dominated over 90% of the American sugar trade, decided to invest heavily in the Hillcrest area. And what they did something that was a hallmark of development throughout the 19th century, in the late 19th century. What they did was they built an attraction, anticipating the electric rail line over the Pennsylvania Avenue Bridge, which was promised. And they built a hotel called the Overlook Inn. And again, this is the inn that is sort of obliquely referred to in different spaces. In my mind, when I first heard about it, I thought it was, a little toll house, with maybe 2 rooms. The articles go on and on about the wraparound porches and the vistas that people would see from the city from this inn. And what they did to attract people to it and get people across that bridge, they started a fad among Washington's elites, where they would have these bobtail coaches, 2-person coaches, not big coaches, but little sports cars, if you will, of the day, doing caravans across the city. They would stop at the major hotels, the Raleigh, the Willard, and pick up Washington's elite. And they would go thundering through downtown and Capitol Hill across the Pennsylvania Avenue Bridge to party at the Overlook Inn. And I couldn't believe that this had been overlooked. And some might say, well, it was 100 years ago. What's the difference? The difference is, again, in the story that we tell, and the story that is absorbed about Ward 7, about far southeast. It tends to be a rather one-note story. And I can't tell you the number of times I had heard, oh, well, nothing ever happened over there. Oh, well, no one was ever interested. And to find out time after time after time that was not true. To discover that one of Washington's foremost actors lived in what is now DuPont Park. He and his wife, Eugenie Blair, actually, she went on to become a bigger star than he. She was a major star on Broadway. But they lived in what is now DuPont Park. And there are lifestyle articles from 1894 about this incredible couple living in far southeast and the wonderful life they were living. And it's when you start to understand that there was a greater story, I think it adds a richness to it. I'm reminded of actually my very first encounter with Hillcrest when I was a student years ago, at Sidwell Friends, and some of my fellow African-American students were talking about another student who lived in the neighborhood, and they were very complimentary. They were saying, this young man, it just goes to show it doesn't matter where you come from. He's the hardest working, he's smart, he's so articulate, and all of this stuff, and isn't it something? And he comes from far southeast. Lord only knows the trials that he's had to overcome coming from abject poverty. And this girl got up and she was like, wait a minute. We were working on a project together. I went over to his house last week. His house is bigger than my house. His house is bigger than your house. His mother's a lawyer for some, major corporation. It's not about the factor of wealth, have, not have. It's a matter of a broader story. It's a matter of a fuller picture. And for me, that was very important to draw a fuller picture for the broader community. But history, as anything, is an evolving entity. And there is history being told all the time. There is history to be captured all the time. There is an incredible documentary, community documentary project that has been completed. And as she waves and waves her head, that's right. There's an incredible documentary project that has been completed right here in the neighborhood, capturing the stories of individuals who live here now, today. And that is critical history. Just to sort of wrap up about the Overlook Inn, I did want to go back to that inn as far as what happened to it. Why is it that we now talk about other amenities that were built in other communities, such as Tacoma Park? Tacoma Park built the Tacoma Inn to draw people. In Chevy Chase, there was an amusement park near Chevy Chase Circle. But you know, those actually failed rather quickly. They either failed and closed or really wobbled. Forest Glen is another great example of that, just outside Georgia Avenue. It's another great example of one of these amenities that were built to attract people along the new rail line. And knowing that Congress was absolutely fated to approve the rail line for Southeast, that's what people were banking on. And unfortunately, Congress denied the charter. And almost immediately, the Overlook Inn began to fall out of favor. The individuals who had invested in land in anticipation of a new day began to ignore their land. And unfortunately, by the turn of the century, the Overlook Inn had closed and had become basically the increasingly derelict property of a gentleman named Archibald Bliss. And it was actually there that became the heart of the Hillcrest community. Colonel Randall, who had developed Congress Heights, actually bought all of the former East Washington Heights plat, renamed it Randall Highlands. And he started to develop the part along Pennsylvania Avenue. However, it was the part right up around Hillcrest where the Overlook Inn was situated. And that was the heart of that community. And I must ask you, not that anyone had not noticed, but just now we have the presence of the mayor of our city and a longtime Hillcrest resident and champion. And I wanted to wait until you were seated. And it's been a pleasure to speak to you today a little bit about the history of Hillcrest. As mentioned, I do a tour for the Cultural Tourism DC, for Walking Town DC every year. But I really look forward to hopefully doing some more tours for the neighborhood, because I think several people have asked about it, but I would love to lead some tours for the neighborhood, because we have a rich history throughout the entirety of Ward 7. And it's an incredible opportunity to be able to share those stories with you. So thank you for your time today. And I appreciate I don't know if there are any questions. Maybe we could take a question. Or we can continue on. And I think Marvin Bowser is here to introduce. All right, thank you.
So I have now a joint resolution that was sponsored by council members Yvette Alexander and Muriel Bowser for Hillcrest. So the resolution is in your program book if you want to follow along, and because of its length, I'm going to summarize some things if you want to follow. Okay, so to recognize and honor the Hillcrest Community Civic Association and its president, Karen Lee Williams, for celebrating its 25th anniversary on September 27th, 2014. Whereas, long paragraph about where Hillcrest is located, and we all know that. So whereas Hillcrest is an idyllic bedroom community with rolling hills, manicured lawns, red brick colonials and ramblers, tennis courts, community gardens, and a city park with an amphitheater. Whereas Hillcrest offers views of the Capitol and the Washington Monument. Whereas Hillcrest is one of the district's best kept secrets. Whereas Hillcrest is full of civic-minded residents who love their community and give back to it, as we all do. Whereas the Hillcrest Community Civic Association was established in 1989 with the intent to promote the welfare of the Hillcrest neighborhood in Ward 7. Whereas Hillcrest was the only Ward 7 community that did not have a sustainable neighborhood association at the time. Whereas on August 2nd, 1989, approximately 60 people met in the front lawn of Mr. and Mrs. Dennis Logan for the Hillcrest annual neighborhood night Neighborhood Watch Night Out. Whereas on September 30th, 1989, Hillcrest neighbors met at the Church of the Holy Comforter at 10 a.m. to form the Hillcrest Community Civic Association. How many people were there that day? Raise your hands. Isn't that wonderful? Whereas Belva Simmons was elected as the first president of the Hillcrest Community Civic Association. And then we have a number of community gardens throughout the neighborhood, which are listed in the proclamation. And these community projects enhance the already vibrant Hillcrest community. Whereas the Washington Post called Hillcrest the answer to Cleveland Park. What was the question? Okay. Whereas the Hillcrest community is rich in history, culture, and serves as an important landmark to the district history. And whereas two district mayors have lived in Hillcrest. Whereas the first homes in Hillcrest were built in 1928, and whereas Chemical Company Number 2 was organized and placed in service on November 13th, 1911 on Pennsylvania Avenue, and in 1920 when the last chemical companies were converted to regular engine companies and equipped with a hose wagon and pumper, and it was renumbered Engine 19. Resolved by the Council of the District of Columbia that this resolution may be cited as the Hillcrest Community Civic Association Recognition Resolution of 2014. Section 2, the Council of the District of Columbia commends and recognizes the Hillcrest Community Civic Association for its promotion of community welfare and civic engagement. Section 3, the resolution shall take effect immediately upon the first date of publication in the District of Columbia Register. Madam President.
We're here to celebrate 25 years of this organization, and it's a wonderful place to live, and this is a wonderful day to have an event. Welcome again to everyone that's here. I'd like to piggyback on our theme, reaching back and looking forward. Mr. Byers did a marvelous job of reaching back, telling us what Hillcrest was. Just give it up for him. Wonderful job. We have Harry Wingo, the president and CEO, our newest president, I might add, and CEO of the D.C. Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Wingo, or Lieutenant Wingo, who is a Navy SEAL, retired, and who was raised at Texas Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue in Penn Branch. His mother was a product and a teacher in the D.C. school system. We heard the violinists earlier today, and I'd just like to say we are leaning forward. That young man sounded marvelous. Let's give it again for the violinists. And to further on that, looking at Mr. Wingo's biography, which is in your program, you'll see that he's a very distinguished Navy SEAL. I'll say that before and I'll say it again. And it becomes just very, 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 very wonderful for us to have an African-American male in the Navy SEALs. I don't know how many of you have ever seen those training films and the requirements it takes for a person to become a Navy SEAL. I'll just say this, as a child, I'd always wanted to be on an aircraft carrier. I don't know why I had that in my head, but I'll just say this. A lot of us probably did. I wanted to be a fireman for 33 years, but I'll just say this. It now becomes my duty and pleasure, again, as I said, to bring forward Mr. Harry Wingo, President and CEO, newest of our Chamber of Commerce. Welcome.
Thank you, Chief Short. First, giving honor to God, I'm humbled by the opportunity to be here in front of you. And I'm getting older, so I put these on so I can see everybody's face. And actually, I want to pause because the mayor is here. Vincent Gray, you've done so much for this city, sir. And yes, let's do a round of applause. And I want to say thank you to each of you because I was born in this city. My parents took me home from the hospital was to Texas Avenue, 4330, right near the shrimp boat. We know about the shrimp boat. And even though my parents moved from Texas Avenue when I was 5 years old, I was raised in the church in Washington, D.C., because we went to Tabernacle Baptist Church on Division Avenue. Drove in every Sunday because my parents were kind of old school like that. And we would visit relatives around the city after church, and so D.C. was in me. We were down Route 4, just past Wason's Corner, and my dad was an enlisted man in the Army. He worked for lawyers, and my mom was a school teacher. What I want to talk about, though, to celebrate this 25th anniversary, because Hillcrest, I've known about Hillcrest for a very long time. And, Pennsylvania Avenue, that was the way that we came into the city. And just the trees and how beautiful it still is. And it's up, Hillcrest. It's right in the word. And so moving forward, what I want to talk about first is definitely voice. And I want to talk about community. And I want to talk about elevation. Just those three things. And so voice is really for us collectively, advocacy. And I have big shoes to fill. I'm taking over from Barbara Lang. You all know Barbara Lang. Let's give her a round of applause. My predecessor grew a 75-year-old organization that had been the Negro Chamber of Commerce into an organization that has big businesses, medium-sized businesses, small businesses. But she took it to another level. Just as a city is being elevated, I stepped into an organization that had a proud history. And in fact, we've got members like Doyle and Patricia Mitchell, Industrial Bank, celebrating their 80th year. Doyle's grandfather was instrumental in starting the chamber 75 years ago. We have voices in this room. You've all been engaged. What we're trying to do is to collect our voices so that as a community, which is something this organization has done, is that we can apply our voices towards making a difference. And then also, I want to recognize, just pause real quick, to recognize Councilmember Catania, who's here in the room. It's an important part of what's going on as the DC Council, and sir, it's been great to work with you in this new role. If we could have a round of applause. But for community, I was a Navy SEAL, and the reason I say I'm humbled is because for Chief Short, we connected before this, and Chief, I'm humbled to hear some of your stories. We're going to be working together, but you have a true hero sitting right here. If we get a round of applause for him, please, because he's put his life in danger. Like Chief Short, all I could dream about being was, I used to want to be a minister when I was little. And then I thought about different things, and I went to the Naval Academy, because when I asked my dad if he could help me out with college, he said, well, son, I can help you with your first year at the community college. And so I figured I better get a scholarship. But looking back, part of D.C. for me, I had one relative who was off 16th Street on Upshur, Gold Coast. Everybody else, not so much. And I was raised on thrift store clothes. I was never poor. I had both parents in the home, but I remember being so ashamed to go into thrift stores and have to, at school, I'd hope nobody sees that I was coming out of, there was one thrift store, but my parents would drive in for that, my mom would, on 14th Street. It was AmVets. It was right across from the bus depot. Oh, man, I hated going there. But my parents were making do. And so community, back then, for D.C., and it's just in my heart. People sitting on steps and just all the cities, and even though we were out in the country, so to speak, from there, but not too far a drive, D.C. is just amazing. When I look at it now, when I look at the leadership that Mayor Gray has done for the city, we were rocketing up. And talk about elevation. The city is going to new heights. But something about the word, Hillcrest, that idea of being above. And you're at a vantage point for the city. We're Hillcrest. You can see another type of hill. You can see Capitol Hill, but Hillcrest is not Capitol Hill. We're more into the city. we have those opportunities. But crest, the part of like there's a wave. Well, I'm a Navy guy. So when I think of crest, I think of the crest of a wave. And we have this wave that's breaking over the city that it's just, we can take it into whatever we need it to be. But that wave started out with a lot of voices, a lot of community action. One of those important things, a wind, is what really starts a wave starting way out to sea. And again, Mayor Gray, what you've done on so many things, not just attracting capital. The motto of the D.C. Chamber of Commerce is delivering the capital. One of the most important things the mayor did was look back and make sure we have universal pre-K in the city. That's worth applauding. Because as a community, the most important resource we have, despite all the cranes that are going up, all the concrete going in the ground, all of the networks, broadband, telecom, cybersecurity, we have so many opportunities. But the most important resource we have are our children and our next generation. And so the mayor realizes that that crest of that wave of opportunity is going to start out on the sea and break over this city. One of those wins that's most important is for young kids, to make sure we're getting that started. And so we have such an opportunity. And our first speaker, thank you for all that wisdom. I thought about what you said about that bridge. We've got a divide still, unfortunately, between parts of our city. I'm blessed. I live in northwest part of the city, Chevy Chase, D.C. I never set foot in Chevy Chase, D.C. till I was after college, right? I would have never dreamed about that. My dad drove a taxi cab for extra money. And all I knew about downtown and the people wearing ties and carrying briefcases back then was that when we had a fair, you didn't have much rules back then, right? We would play in the car, and that was daycare, pretty much. If he was doing the fair, we couldn't make those arrangements and things. I went to Kitty College off Texas Avenue. But some of my first memories, though, was just how foreign downtown was. I knew about places like Hillcrest and around the way and Benning Road and all that, but I didn't know about that part of the city. And unfortunately, if we look at the numbers, we look at the kids who really, their voices, they haven't heard our voice enough. If you're out there and you're thriving, I'm lucky, I'm blessed. I mean, I was very fortunate to be a Navy SEAL. In fact, 1989, August 8th, 1989, when this organization was formed, I was learning how to lock out of submarines. After that, I would go and do counter-drug work, and I just didn't know that you all were combining your voices into a community and elevating not just Hillcrest, but the rest of the city. And so it's so important for us to join forces. And at the chamber, so what am I doing at the chamber? I've got big shoes to fill. I've been there since April. But what I'm doing is I'm broadening the path. We have an opportunity to raise our voice, be the voice for business. I'm in the business of business. And so to make sure that we work with the mayor's team, with the DC Council, and collectively for all the great organizations like Verizon, like Pepco, like Care First, Kaiser Permanente, all the colleges and universities, Akridge, we've got Hines Construction, W.C. Smith. I mean, just so many people that we just want to thrive, but we want everybody to thrive. So that's number one, is make sure that we're the voice for business and do advocacy over at the council and with the mayor's team. But we're also looking at workforce development. We're trying to make sure that we have the workforce that we need. And of course, it's things like construction. Did you know WMATA, for example, has contracts, $4 million to $20 million? And the federal folks came over and said, Harry, we can't find welders. We need welders to fill those roles. And the mayor has DSLBD and has been leaning forward on contracting. And you may be hearing things about, well, what about, $1 billion and this money? There's a complicated story about that. I know the mayor is working all the time, has been working to create more opportunities, and it's a lot of things. We have to make sure that we're continuing to work on developing folks, let them know about those opportunities like WMATA, welders for buses and for trains. If you know somebody that's a welder, and you know what I thought? You've seen auto body shops in Ward 5. They can do that. In fact, I asked them, I said, well, tell me somebody you had success with in Maryland. And they told me about it. It was an auto body shop. I recognized the name of it. I was like, well, you know what? That's in Upper Marlboro. I called it up on the map. With the internet now, you can just take a picture and see a picture of a place. And I said, wait a minute, look at this picture. Somebody that they grabbed and was given this huge opportunity. And I said, we're let me open up something in Ward 5, and there you go. You see a difference? Same thing. So really, we have to use our voices. We have to use our voices to let people know these are the opportunities. So workforce development happens best if you're doing it through enterprises, through companies that are there. And they want to connect, but we have to make sure we're connecting across the city. One thing we did is St. Elizabeth's. Again, Mayor, I know I keep coming back to you, but you've done so much, sir. I've gone over to St. Elizabeth's. We had Damon John from Shark Tank. You know, Damon John, who turned $40 where he was making hats outside of baseball stadiums in New York. He's from Hollis, Queens. He turned that into $100 million, FUBU, and now he's on TV. He came here to D.C. But we didn't stop at having a fancy meeting for him at the Renaissance Hotel. It was great. We need your support. If you haven't joined the Chamber, by the way, please join the Chamber. October 25th, we've got our big gala. Sir, thanks for your support, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Catania, but we need you to join. But we took Damon John from that fancy, great lunch, and we went across the bridge, and we went to St. Elizabeth's, and we went to the tech pavilion that's there, and you should have seen the kids that were from a charter school right across the way, at MLK Avenue right across the street, and folks, just folks who were from Ward 8, Ward 7, came over just to see him talk, and they were inspired. So again, I don't want to talk too long. I've done a lot of things in the Navy. I was blessed, jumped out of planes, blown stuff up, carried a gun for 6.5 years, went to Yale for law school. I'm truly blessed. And I have to admit, I have an apology to make, which is I'm from here, and I haven't talked to you over several years. I'm back in this role, so please accept my apology. I have to make sure I get in front of you and listen to what you have to say. Mr. Savage, I had a chance to talk to you, sir. Ms. Simmons, Jerry, we were talking. And I want to thank Ms. Logan, of course, for getting this organization started. But yes. But DC is on the move. We're being elevated now. We just have to make sure that some hands that need to be grabbed. If you look at the graduation rates in Ward 8, for example, heartbreaking. I can't believe them. I wanted to try and get some of the numbers right, but we know we've been making progress, but we still have some kids that are losing. We're losing them. Because we have to use our voices to reach them, to remind them that they are part of a community, and we have to grab people by the hand and not let go. Not let go, because the city is really on the move. We're the #1 city for professional women. Forbes magazine said DC is the coolest city in the country. Coolest. Very cool city. And it's also for millennials, so the next generation of professionals, they want to live here. They're dying to live here. In fact, we're the #2 city, #2 in the country for millennials after Seattle. So that tells you what's going on. But we can't lose kids to violence. The incarceration rate's too high. We worked on the issue of returning citizens. We're leaning in. And so there's a lot of work to do. I can't do it alone. And it's with humility to come to you with a lot of experiences. I worked for Google for 5 years, right here in D.C. And I put my apology out there because I had my eyes on Capitol Hill. I was a staffer up there. I worked at the Federal Communications Commission. I worked at a fancy law firm at Google when it was just still growing. And I started a cybersecurity company last summer. And I didn't know this opportunity that God was going to bring it to me. A headhunter found me based on, and Chairman Mendelson, I see you in the audience. I hadn't, sir, the Chairman of the Council, if we could please recognize him as well. Do we have any other council members who are here? But what I wanted to say is that coming back to roots and the power that's here, the energy in this organization, I just want to thank you and say that I'm humbled to have the opportunity to lead the D.C. Chamber of Commerce, and I look forward to working with each of you. And I just wanted to say thank you, and it's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wingo. Very inspirational. When I have time, I'm going to ask you about being a Navy SEAL, man, because I understand that's just one of the toughest things that person can do. Before I bring on our president of the Hillcrest Civic Association to introduce the mayor, I do want to do a recognition a second time of Councilmember David Catania and Chairman Phil Mendelson. You're in the right place. Thank you so much. Karen, come forward and introduce our mayor, if you would. He needs no introduction, but we stand on formality here.
This is a man in this room who needs no introduction. We know he has lived in Hillcrest since 1982, 84. He beat me by 10 years, so, you know, I had to follow behind him. We lived on K Street, he lived on L Street, we lived over here, then we were all in Hillcrest again. So I've been following him around all my life. Maybe I need to stop that. But I would like, since he is a member of our Civic Association and used to regularly attend our meetings until he became mayor and got so busy, I would like to take a minute for the members of the association to stand and give him a round of applause for all he has done for our community and our city. I know you stay. Well, you can come up here. Come on. Yeah. We're especially thankful because he finally got Skyland Project off the ground. And one day, we will have a place where we can go sit down and have a meal in our community. So thank you. We just want you to know how much we love you. And Chief Short had asked me to do something special for you. And he suggested that we give you the key to Hillcrest. Well, I forgot to call Sheila and ask her where I could get a key because I only had a week's notice. Okay. So instead of a key, you get another dust collector. Here. A plaque from Hillcrest.
Thank you very much, Karen. It is true that I don't know how much an age difference there is. Every time I hear it, it gets wider and wider. Yeah. Y'all understand? Y'all understand what I'm saying, right?
You're Asian.
Yeah, I understand, Karen. I got it. Okay. I actually did. I grew up in this neighborhood, and trust me, ladies and gentlemen, you can walk around this neighborhood now and it looks great. It was the hood, man. Try Orleans Place. Try Morton. And, you know, I'm proud of the education that I got in the public schools of the District of Columbia, and then I had an opportunity to go on. Yeah, I went to Langley. I went to Dunbar High School. Proud of Dunbar High School. Went on to George Washington University, undergraduate and graduate school thereafter. But there is no education that matches the one you get in the streets of this neighborhood. And, you know, you really are vast, you know, you're moving back and forth in between, you know, trying to make sure you take advantage of the university education you're getting and taking full advantage of the street education that you're getting as you go. I want to recognize the council members that are here. First of all, Chairman Mendelson, who has joined us. Thank you, Phil, for coming out. You've been a regular in Hillcrest over a period of years. I want to thank you for your support, and you too, David. David Catania, who is here today. I want to thank both of you for your efforts. I want to thank Karen for her service. She is the current in a long line of outstanding leaders who have served as president of Hillcrest, certainly beginning with Dennis and Gloria Logan, who were the founding parents, if you will, for want of a better way of putting, of what I think is absolutely the finest civic association in the District of Columbia and perhaps across the nation, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Jim also for the walk down memory lane. It was nice to hear. I'm sorry I didn't hear all of it, but what I did hear was a a sterling presentation of what the history is of Hillcrest in the context of the District of Columbia. And Harry, I want to thank you for your leadership at the Chamber. You've been there now, what, close to 6 months, I guess. It is a daunting responsibility to come behind someone like Barbara Lang, who has done such an extraordinary job. I want to thank you for your service to the country. We were just talking about, I don't know how many of you all saw the movie. He wasn't a SEAL, and Harry reminded me of that, but I thought he was. The movie that Cuba Gooding starred in, what a portrait of courage, a picture of courage that man was. He lost his leg. It was a true story. He lost his leg and managed to be able to continue to do what he was doing as a Navy diver. So I congratulate you and thank you for the service that you've provided, Harry, and now what you're doing for our city. So thank you so much, and I appreciate the leadership. I don't want to start singling out people, but I do have to single out Vince Spalding, who moved to, was it Wake County? Wake County, is that right? North Carolina. And did such a great job of helping to build Hillcrest. There wasn't anything that he didn't do, including there were so many Saturday mornings when I see him out picking up the trash. Making sure that the community was clean, and he has never lost contact, even in the several years since he's been gone. And Vince, I want to thank you for coming back and being a part of this auspicious occasion. I do want to present a proclamation, but let me just say a word before I do that. One, I want to thank Harry for contextualizing his comments in where our city is going, because we really are moving in the right direction, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the strongest financial position that the District of Columbia has ever been in its history. We have a reserve fund. We have a fund balance that is $1.75 billion. You know, I hesitate to say that, you know, now, because I take great pride in that, because it helps us earn interest and, you know, contribute to where we're going. And then I've been in enough meetings now where I hesitate to say it, because people will say, well, why don't you spend it on something? And then you have to go through this long explanation of how the money is designated for this and designated for that and designated for the other, and nobody really wants to hear that, because they want you to spend that money, right? And people always have good ideas in terms of how you can spend money. We also are doing well in terms of moving forward with education. I want to thank you, David, for your leadership on the council with our public education especially. We have a strong charter system. We have an increasingly strong traditional public education system in the city, and I am very proud to be able to say that we have the best early childhood education program in America. We have We have 80% of our three-year-olds that now go to school all day, every day, ladies and gentlemen, and 94% of our four-year-olds that go to school all day, every day. And we know that early start in a systematic way, well, that was timely that you walk in. If there ever was a champion for early childhood education, she just walked in, and that is Carrie Thornhill. Carrie, how are you? And we're doing well on the public safety front. We are doing well on the sustainability front. People actually have stopped asking me now, what is sustainability? It is working on our environment, and we have been accorded just in recent weeks. We are now in the top 3 in the STAR rating system, which is probably the most aggressive, comprehensive rating system on environmental issues now in the nation. We are in the top 3 with Seattle, Washington, which is an outstanding city, and a place called Northampton, Massachusetts. And I have no idea where the hell Northampton, Massachusetts is, but they are in the top 3. You see all the development that's taking place all across the city. You see it everywhere. And our unemployment rate, ladies and gentlemen, has come from, when I started in office, 11.3%, down to 7.4%, which is still too high, but it is going in the right direction. You see what's happening with the Gregory Library. It is a beautiful, it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. You look at what's happening with St. Elizabeth's, and if you open your program book, you see what Skyland is going to be. And yes, after a gazillion years, there will be a Skyland shopping center, ladies and gentlemen. I stay after Rappaport and Chris Smith. They are so sick of talking to me, man. I know that on October 15th, I want to invite you all out to Skyland because the demolition starts on October 15th for the Skyland Shopping Center. And yes, Karen, there will be a place to have a sit-down meal in Skyland. There will be 400 units of housing that will be there. People will start to say, I can't wait to move to the east end of the city into Hillcrest. It will be no longer a well-kept secret, ladies and gentlemen, because folks are going to want to move there, and they will, those of you who own your homes, hang on to them because they're going to drive up the price and you're going to make a fortune off of those homes, okay? You know, the one thing I want to say, and we need the tenacity, we need the commitment, we need the fervor, we need the drive that has been so evident in Hillcrest and across the city. And that is, we continue to have the hypocrisy of democracy in the District of Columbia. Last week, a week ago Monday, we had, I think it was the first ever, hearing before the United States Senate on statehood for the District of Columbia. And I want to thank Senator Thomas Carper of Delaware for convening that hearing, for giving us an opportunity to make the case. And you know what was great? We didn't have to sit there and listen to even the other party, you know, the Republican Party, talk about why we don't deserve to have democracy in the District of Columbia. You know how they used to do. They talk about the management of the city. They talk about the finances. They talked about the crime. They talked about everything they could find in order to discredit the opportunity for us to be able to enjoy the same thing that other Americans enjoy. It really was an opportunity for us to make the case. Is the bill going to move? No, this bill is not going to move, but it is a step in the right direction. It continues to be unconscionable, ladies and gentlemen, and we ought to be sick and tired of having to send our budget up to a group of people to approve it who can't even approve a budget for the nation. You talk about financial management, that is some of the worst financial management I've ever seen on Capitol Hill. Yes, you talk about Hillcrest, we'll talk about Capitol Hill. You want to have a conversation about that? I'll be glad to have one because it is the worst example of responsibility in this nation. And it is shameful that in the shadow of the Capitol, they continue to tolerate what we go and send people to die for in Afghanistan, now in Syria, in Iraq, and other places, claiming to bring democracy everywhere, but we won't fight for it right in our own city, ladies and gentlemen. That is a travesty. It is time for it to end. It is time for it to stop. We have more people that live in this city than the state of Vermont, more than the state of Wyoming. We have 660,000 people who are disenfranchised. It is time for us to be able to approve our own laws, to be able to approve our own budget, to have a vote in Congress, and to be treated like what we are, Americans, ladies and gentlemen. We want to be Americans just like everybody else. And so, Karen, and so, my friend, who I am 37 years older than. No, it really isn't, Karen. I am pleased on behalf of me to present you this proclamation. It is one of the things that the mayor gets to do. I don't have to get the council's approval to do this, ladies and gentlemen. And so I am proud today, on behalf of myself and a resident of Hillcrest, to be able to proclaim today Hillcrest Community Civic Association Day in the District of Columbia.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lateef Mangum, and I'm here today not only to cover the mayor. Thank you, sir, for being here. But I have the great opportunity of putting together a multimedia piece for Hillcrest community. And it was a labor of love. And it's very short, but hopefully I've covered a lot of the grounds visually.
If you Google the Southeast Washington, D.C. neighborhood known as Hillcrest, you will find it described as a community of rolling hills, manicured lawns, red brick colonials and ramblers, condominiums and apartments. It is one of the few DC neighborhoods that is almost always described with words of praise and admiration. Phrases like the gem of Southeast, one of DC's best kept secrets, the Silver Coast, unlike anywhere else in the district. Historically, Hillcrest was once nestled inside of Maryland's Prince George's County and was part of Colonel Ninian Beale's tobacco plantation. It later became the None Such Slave Plantation owned by George Washington Young. When development came to what was then known as East Washington Heights in the early 1900s, the developers placed racial covenants in rental and property deeds to keep African Americans and non-whites from living in what was ultimately renamed Hillcrest. When DC became integrated, the then existing Civic Association prevented African Americans from joining its group. This exclusion led to the creation of the Hillcrest Community Civic Association, an idea that began on the lawn of former DC Deputy Fire Chief Dennis Logan and his wife Gloria, who launched and ran Hillcrest's Neighborhood Watch program for 20 years. Over the course of its 25-year history, the Civic Association has been served by former Presidents Belva T. Simmons, Paul Savage, Pastor Franklin G. Senger III, Vincent Spaulding, and Karen Lee Williams. Today, the Hillcrest Civic Association and its members fully embrace diversity, demand responsive policing, clean streets, and strongly encourage individual and collective civic participation. They plant trees, cultivate clean water and air, help the watershed, and insist upon upkeep of their community's many surrounding National Circle Park treasures. Truly, it is the residents of Hillcrest that has made it one of the most sought-after neighborhoods in DC. Current Mayor Vincent Gray has called Hillcrest home for 30 years. During this time, he has also served as Ward 7 council member, as well as chairman of the DC City Council. Former Mayor Marion Barry and his wife Effie also lived in Hillcrest when he served as mayor. Hillcrest boasts one of the highest voting precincts in the city. Anthony Williams was drafted by Hillcrest residents to run for mayor in 1998 and won big with the support from Hillcrest. Public service is obviously a hallmark of Hillcrest, which has produced 2 DC City Council chairmen, 5 city council members, 1 police chief, 2 deputy fire chiefs, and a court judge, just to name a few. For decades, association members have fought for and won upgrades to both the Penn Branch Shopping Center and the Skyland development, which is slated to be one of the largest real estate projects east of the Anacostia River. Hillcrest residents take enormous pride in the aesthetics of their community and have illustrated this with such initiatives as the Hillcrest Garden Tour, which has proudly showcased the unique homes and gardens of this community for more than 20 years. These and more are examples of how ordinary citizens make Hillcrest extraordinary. Thank you, public officials, friends, and members, for celebrating 25 years of Hillcrest Civic Association history. We look forward to an even more memorable future.
Thank you, Latrice. Let's give a round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I guess the applause should go to the residents of Hillcrest who have worked so hard to maintain a very solid community. So a hand to all the Hillcrest residents. All right.
As chair of this event, I wanted to just take this chair's liberty to honor our historian, Miss Gloria Logan.
Thank you very much, Hillcrest and guests. This is a very, very special and emotional day. 25 years ago, in the month of September 1989, where about 57 people gathered on my lawn, and we said, we do not have a civic association, let's form one. And it was Belva T. Simmons, my neighbor, who said, I'll get it started. And it was Pastor Franklin Singer, who wanted to be here today, but he's quite ill now, could not make it. He said, use my church, the Lutheran Church of the Holy Comforter, and so we did. 25 years ago, we've made wonderful strides with those great presidents, many that are here today, and we're still making strides, still moving forward, and thanks to all of you who joined in today to celebrate, I thank you.
I also wanted to acknowledge, well, we've just been joined by the Honorable Ward 7 Council Member, the Honorable Yvette Alexander.
Good afternoon. I see my colleagues here, the chairman, Chairman Mendelson, and at-large member, Council Member David Catania. I am honored to be here this afternoon. Please forgive me, there's so much going on, the Congressional Black Caucus weekend, but I am truly honored to be here. Hillcrest Civic Association and the history of the 25 years means a lot, especially for this Congressional Black Caucus weekend. On the foundation, it was founded with the African Americans who moved into the community. We know that communities were very segregated at one time. So I commend the Hillcrest Civic Association for all they do. Hillcrest is the foundation, really a model community for other communities around the city and around the country because of your activism, because of your neighborly spirit, and because of your longevity in bringing neighbors together for civil causes and for social causes. So I do appreciate being a part of the community. I know I am a Penn Brancher, but Penn Branch, but we are neighbors, right? Pennsylvania Avenue is the only thing that separates us, so we are all family here in Ward 7. Congratulations on 25 years, and here's to many, many more. God bless.
You may have noticed in your program that in addition to the mayors honoring us with naming today in honor of Hillcrest, today is our day. The mayor named it so. We've been blessed with being able to have resolutions. Chairman Mendelson and our Honorable Council Member Yvette Alexander did a resolution in honor of our association, and it appears in the program. And I want to thank them both for taking the time and honoring us. And so please, if you'll give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon. 25 years is pretty remarkable, and as many of you know, I try to get out to your Saturday meeting, so I'm no stranger to Hillcrest, and I know how much has been accomplished by the citizens of the Hillcrest community over the years. It is a great community. I think the mayor said it when he said you are, I think he said the best. I would have said one of the best because I'm still in office. But Hillcrest truly is one of the best civic community organizations in the city. I don't know about the nation. He said that as well, but today I'll agree with him on that as well. And as was noted in the slideshow, Hillcrest really has been remarkable in who all lives here. I mean, there are a lot of very good citizens, as you know, who live in Hillcrest, but also, 2 mayors. It was ground zero for a 3rd mayor. That's out of 6 that we've had since home rule. But more importantly, Hillcrest has been about community engagement, civic engagement, participation in the issues that confront our city. And that is so important. We don't have a very good democracy if we don't have civic participation. And Hillcrest truly truly is one of the best in that regard. And the other thing, one other thing I want to say is that I know that this is in part a fundraiser, and it's a fundraiser for a new scholarship fund. And I think it's laudable that the Community Association wants to start back and perpetuate a scholarship fund for high school graduates from the community so that they have a better chance at post-secondary education. I think that is so important. So I'm proud to be here with you to celebrate and proud to support your efforts, and I'm always available whenever you need my help. Thank you so much.
I also want to take the time to honor our shadow senator, Michael Brown. Mr. Brown, would you please stand? Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. We will now resume with our Master of Ceremonies. Sir?
Before we proceed further, I think we would be remiss if we did not allow the at-large council member to say a few words to this august body. So with that said, Councilmember Catania, please come up and say what you've got to say.
I have to be honest, I've been watching throughout the audience, and about half of the room over here is looking at their watch, so that means I better be quick. I want to say how much I appreciate the partnership with this civic association we've had over the years. And I want to acknowledge DeAndre Anderson, who chairs the Civic Association's Education Committee. And the work, yes, let's acknowledge that. I just have had the privilege to work with the Civic Association, with our school system for more than a year, as we've tried to focus the school system's attention on an application middle school for the Ward 7 and 8 community. And it's the tenacity of this organization. I was really pleased to be a partner and to assist when I could, including $8 million to help in the planning of the process. And I want to acknowledge that Ms. Alexander helped in assembling those funds. It's very important. We're here, that's important. We're here to celebrate community and democracy. And the cornerstone of any good democracy is a solidly educated population. In the absence of an educated population, our democracy is at risk. It was with that very much in mind that we've spent more than a year trying to fulfill a long overdue promise to the residents of 7 and 8, and that is a high-quality, traditional public school choice. Every morning in our city, we know this, and you can't face it, you can't put something behind you until you put it in front of you. And through my nearly 150 school visits since becoming chairman of the committee, what I see every morning are the consequences of a failed public education system, an unequal system, a system that asks parents very often to get up and drive across town in the hopes that maybe they'll have a chance. That is not acceptable. What we have to do, and what this organization represents, is a calling of the question. And I sincerely hope that going forward, we will not for 1 second relent on the importance of an equal education no matter where you live in this city. And so it's just been a real honor and a privilege. And I want to say again, working with many, many individuals in this room and the many, many meetings we've had with DCPS, that we cannot let the attention up for 1 second. The notion that 60,000 of our children every morning are sent to a school that is not their in-boundary school speaks volumes. And none of us should be satisfied until the time comes when you can go down the street and have the same expectations of excellence that exists throughout the city. So I just have been very blessed by this association, nearly 17 years with the Hillcrest Association, and having so many friends here. And definitely do not wish to politicize this event, but wish to say thank you for years and years of just loving reception. And with that, I think my time is up before the hook comes, and want to wish everyone just a terrific weekend. Thank you.
We're heading towards closing about 60 miles an hour, but we're not there yet. I want to recognize other Civic Association presidents if they're here. If you are here, stand and come forward and be with our President Karen Williams, because she is going to nail the coffin on this.
I am Jerry Adam Simmons, and I am president of the DC Federation of Civic Associations. And I just want to especially thank you all for Earl Williams' contribution. He has been invaluable in helping me in this presidency. So I just want you to know Hillcrest is right in the middle of the thick of everything with us. And thank you so much.
Thank you and good afternoon. I just want to congratulate the Hillcrest Civic Association on your 25th anniversary. And I am Linda S. Green, and I am the president of Fort Davis Civic Association. And thank you. And I'm also the ANC Commissioner, Vice Chair 7E02. Thank you. I enjoyed myself. It was well coordinated, very eloquent, and look forward to celebrating with you next year. God bless you.
Good afternoon, Sharon Shanklin Brown, president of the Benning Ridge Civic Association, and we too have one of the best civic associations. And we would like to congratulate Hillcrest on your 25 years of community, voice, where's my person, elevation, and whatever the third one was. Our biggest event is coming up on Monday at 10, and you're all invited. The Ridge Road Civic Association is finally going to have its groundbreaking for our new community center, so you're all invited.
I'm not sure whether it's morning or afternoon. We've had such a good time. Nobody's been paying attention. I'm Juliette Six, and I'm the president of Tenleytown Neighbors Association. And we have, and I have the privilege of working with Earl Williams on a regular basis and the board of the Federation of Citizens Associations of the District of Columbia. Thank you very much, and congratulations to Hillcrest.
I understand that the council member from Ward 4 is in the house. If that is so, would you please come forward and join us and have a few words? We could be here a little while, but that's all right. We don't have anywhere to go.
Well, good afternoon, Hillcrest. The council member from Ward 4 is indeed here, and I bring you greetings from the Lamont Riggs Civic Association, which I'm very proud to be a member of and have been for the last 14 years. And I want to congratulate you on 25 years of wonderful service to the Hillcrest community. We know that civic associations really are the building blocks of our communities, and everything that we can do as a government, we do even better when we have the community support. Whether it's a school, recreation center, public safety, or economic development projects that serve our community, hearing from the community and working hand in hand with you is indeed what we do best as a city. So I want to acknowledge my chairman, Phil Mendelson, who is here, who I know is an excellent supporter of Hillcrest, my colleague, David Catania, who is here, and we are all just really delighted to come from whatever corner of the city we're from to help you celebrate 25 wonderful years. So count on me to be a continued supporter of your great efforts. We were very proud, and I'm looking at you, Ms. Thornhill, and I know that I'm sure the mayor already talked about how Skyland is moving forward. We're going to keep an eye on it as the association. Mr. Williams had me come out and where's Mr. Williams? There he is. Said, Bowser, are you going to support Skyland? And I say yes. And no matter where I sit, we're going to make sure it happens. It's been too long. You deserve a wonderful quality project to serve your neighborhood, and everybody in the city is following it, no matter where we're from. So congratulations again, and enjoy the rest of your lunch.
Also, our honorable council member, we've had a resolution from her earlier, read by her brother, and we thank her for the resolution. So with that, we are coming to the end. I did want to thank the committee. They're the best committee you could ever work with, I'm telling you.
Hello. As usual, we have sponsors that assist us in planning our events. And this year, we were fortunate to have 4. We had the Safeway, the Rappaport Corporation, who's going to deliver us what, Carrie? A wonderful shopping center, correct? Pepco. And we also had Walmart to sponsor this event. So we want to thank them for that. We also had many, many more sponsors, and those sponsors are you all that came out and supported this event. So give yourself a hand. You are our biggest supporters. Okay. And lastly, what can I say about our chairperson? She worked so hard, tirelessly, sending emails. She did a fantastic job. This is a wonderful event. Wouldn't you agree? So on behalf of the committee, I don't know if the committee members want to come up. I want to give you this arrangement, Julie, because you really put your heart into this, and we are very appreciative of that. Okay.
Well, I guess you've gotten a hint that a lot of work went into this. And I'd like to thank the committee, the board, and most of all of you who have supported us today. I'd like to thank our past presidents, Belva Simmons, who is not with us anymore. Mr. Paul Savage, please stand. Pastor Singer, who could not be with us today, but is in all of our hearts. Could we all give him a big round of applause? My predecessor, the one who put me in this mess in the first place, Vincent Spaulding. Thank you, Vince. And thank you for coming all the way up from North Carolina. On behalf of myself, the Board of Directors, the Planning Committee, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. Today, it's not night, today, to our 25th anniversary, and I hope to see you all at the 30th. Thank you.